This is what we woke up to. No one for miles. It's just wet, gloomy, moody. This is Cornwall, the southernmost area in the United Kingdom. Home to epic adventures, deep history, and vast wilderness. My name is Luther Clayton, a young filmmaker and adventurer. I've been living in Cornwall for over 10 years. It's one of the best surfing spots in the UK. That is St Michael's Mount. I want to share with you its natural and historic wonders, the adventure at its doorstep, and the mysteries it withholds. Feel free to join me on my first diary entry. So it is the day before the trip, and we do not have the best weather. I'm still optimistic though. I think it should clear up by tomorrow, but it is rainy, and well, he'll just make it for a better adventure, I guess. I'm excited, guys. I'm excited. I'm really excited. Alright, today is the day that we are going to be traveling around Cornwall. I'm taking you with me, and you're going to learn some stuff. We're going around Cornwall. The plan is to road trip around Cornwall and surrounding areas for 6 days. My mum is here to experience the adventure with me, but also helping to keep everything in order, as mums do. We decided to stay in the southern areas for most of the trip, beginning the journey at one of my favourite towns in Cornwall. We've entered our first destination of the road trip. It's been good. We've been lucky so far. The weather has been on our side. It rained for a little bit, just a sprinkle. And now the sun is out, the seagulls are flying, and we're in Falmouth. Falmouth is a small fishing village situated right next to the River Fal, which goes into the ocean. And as you can see behind us, lots of boats. And we're planning to go into the centre by boat, so it should be really fun. I've never done a park and float before. That's a completely different thing. Park and ride, park and float. Just follow the green lines, they will get you to the sleepway. We were told to follow the green lines and we'd make it to the boat. And you know, even being in the outskirts of Falmouth, you could sense the overall seaside fisherman atmosphere. Crystal waters, the bobbing of boats, a jellyfish floating to the surface. Just the small things made this place special. The boat inn immediately proved to immerse you in the Falmouth life. Yes, there were tourists, but tourism is a huge factor in the economy of the area, and I feel having tourists there put a bright light on the hustle of the town. We are now in the heart of Falmouth after getting a really awesome boat ride into here. It is really interesting to see all the people going about their daily lives, and there are tons of tourists here, but I'd like to show you around. We're going to go into the National Maritime Museum and check out the history of Falmouth. It's a beautiful place. We're not allowed to film with the DSLR in the museum, so we're going to sneak in a little GoPro.
Ought to be called tattooing the beach, because that's what Mr. George Birchett is doing. We used to think that only sailors patronized the art, but ladies have found its uses too. After all, what's more permanent than tattooed eyebrows? so long as one knows where to draw the line. And to reduce the lipstick bill, why not tattooed lips? It doesn't taste and it won't come off. And perhaps that's the drawback. After all, a change of color is desirable sometimes, like the girl who wore green lipstick when she went out with a traffic cop. Now, gentlemen, keep your eyes open on the beach this summer. You never know your luck. And by the way, I want you to know, the lady has a charming smile.
Now, I don't know how to describe the experience of the museum. I've been there before, seen the exhibits many times, but what caught my eye this time was the story. The stories of pirates and their tattoos. The stories of war out at sea. How people rode the ocean before modern boats were around. Despite seeing it all in the past, the story I experienced today was quite different. Maybe it was just that I listened more.
Oh, husband, we are going. Our embargo's off at last. Favourable breezes blowing, bend the canvas o'er the mast. From aloft, the signal streaming. Hark, the farewell gun is fired. Women screeching, tars blaspheming, tell us that our time's expired. Here's a rascal come to task all, prying from the custom house. Trunks unpacking, cases cracking, not a corner for a mouse. Scapes unsearched amid the racket, ere we sail on board the packet.
The time came to leave the town. We arrived to the harbour in the nick of time to catch the next ride out of there. Time to say goodbye to the wonderful maritime town of Falmouth. Well, Falmouth blessed us with beautiful weather, but it is time to carry on down the road.
The rain started between 2 and 3, we were coping quite well, and then everything got out of hand.
You couldn't even hear because of the hailstones hitting the windows.
So it was an awful day.
Big clean-up underway after heavy thunderstorms led to major flooding in the coastal village of Coverack in Cornwall.
The couple who were airlifted to safety.
You can see the shop behind me. They've taken out all the carpets, a lot of the stock. In fact, pretty much all the stock has been damaged. We saw them coming out with that earlier on, and certainly very emotional scenes here. This all happened last night about 5:30. A major emergency was declared.
But it went up to 5'6" inside, so everything on the downstairs is ruined.
But there is a real determination by the people who live here and by the council to work as hard as possible to get things back to normal as quickly as possible.
I gave a commitment last Wednesday to the people that we'd be here for weeks rather than months, but we wouldn't leave until it was finished. At that stage, I couldn't believe we could turn it around in less than a week, which is what they've done. 6 days on, we've turned an earthquake zone into a very polished surfaced tarmac highway, which has been marked. They've even marked the white lines in the car park.
2 weeks after the disaster, the road was opened to tourists, and we were presented with the sight of a well-recovered yet still recovering little village. The roads that were once scars, now smooth and newly paved. Grassy banks, perfect for sitting and watching the sunset on, were destroyed, but now, new turf laid, the banks are back to their brilliance. Shops open for business despite the tough times they've been through. The small fishing boats sat innocently in the harbour. It was like a little paradise. Of course, there were signs of damage still lying there, but the sheer speed of recovery was phenomenal. We were lucky enough to talk to a few locals as we wandered curiously through the village. One man, Marshall Dagger, was kind enough to delay cleaning up his damaged shop and answer a few questions.
Well, I'm Marshall Dagger, and along with my daughter Kate and my wife, we own the old mill shop here, which is a gift shop in the lovely village of Coverack. Well, it affected us very badly because we've had problems with the sea coming over in the past, which we've always been able to cope with for the last 16 years without getting flooded here. But on this occasion, the stream on my left, because we had 4 inches of rain in about 2 hours, the stream filled up and ran very quickly and was coming, instead of going under the road, was coming over the road. We had an awful lot of water coming down here, down this side, and in fact it burst. There's a house behind our shop. It burst their back door, and the flood water came right through their house and out of the front of their house. So we had a torrent down there, a torrent down here, and we are the lowest point, so it pooled in this area, and it was well, you can't see the granite posts behind us, which are about 3 foot high, 4 foot high. It was at the top of those, the flood water, so it was sort of 3 foot or so inside the shop, and it burst. We had a flood board in, we had big garage doors which came across, we had these internal doors closed. It burst the internal doors, and the wave of water went inside and knocked over the counter and lots of other things and destroyed lots and lots of stock. It wasn't just flood water, it was water mixed with mud, silt, sewage, and in fact 2 oil tanks were washed down the stream. So two oil tanks were situated in front of the shop here, plus an upturned garden shed which is about 6 foot from where I'm standing now, and the oil tank, one of the oil tanks was leaking domestic fuel oil as well. So it was quite a cocktail of not very nice stuff which all came in. Everyone has been absolutely amazing. The emergency services on the day, the fire brigade, with about 20 firemen in this sort of area here, they were going around all the houses checking, and indeed here we had my niece was still in the shop and the water was rising, so the fire brigade got her out. She wasn't in any danger, but she had, this is the only way out, so they insisted she came out, which obviously she did. We then lost, the following morning when we could get in, we could see the scene of devastation. No, we've never been flooded here. We've been here 16 years, and the previous people were here 25 years before us, and neither of us were ever flooded. No, this is the only time the shop has ever flooded. Well, we've done, in 2 weeks, we've done what would have taken, I think, normally at least 2 months in rebuilding. We've rewired the whole ground floor, we've put a new ceiling up, we've put all new lighting in, we've built a new counter, because all the display units were all destroyed as well as stock, so we've had to build new display units. And the gentleman who just left 5 minutes ago, and who is called Terry Thompson, has been terrific. David Ellis was another one who's very good at carpentry. He's been helping us, and other people as well. Everyone's been marvellous. It's a pleasure. I hope it never happens to anybody else.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Visiting the village was a time that I'll never forget. This was an incident at the peak of summer, happening in a village that relies heavily on tourism, all created by a little running stream and a few hours of rain. Coverack is small, like really small. I'd never heard of it prior to the incident. But despite this, despite the potential of setting the village's prosperity back for weeks, if not months, what brought this town around was the community, its spirit, their strength. And that inspires me greatly.
Alright, so the tent is all set up, our sleeping systems are out, and it's now time to cook some food, and then we're gonna probably go off on another adventure farther out from this campsite. But first we need a cup of tea. We're now back on the road after having a brilliant little dinner. We had a cup of tea, and also we made some really yummy soup and rice sort of stew thing. Now we're off back on the road to another destination, hopefully to watch the sunset. Although it is overcast, but there are some areas of blue sky where the clouds have sort of broken away. So we hope that there will be a nice sunset, and we're off on our way to Lizard Point, the most southern point in the UK. So that will be really interesting to see and experience. I've never seen it before, so it should be a great experience. Today has been incredible, going to Falmouth and Coverack and getting to talk to some of the locals. Absolutely astonishing day. I really enjoyed it, and definitely an adventure to put in the diary. Awesome. It's currently 4 minutes to 8, and look at this wonderful view. We're here at Lizard Point, and that is the most southern point of the UK. It's awesome. The nature here is really unique. It's actually quite wild, considering that all this here is abandoned, not used anymore, but nature has kind of taken over, and it really shows the raw power of nature. Right up here is a nest. You can hear them. Up in this corner of this old abandoned lifeguard watch house. Right in the corner up there is a nest of probably swallows. So that is incredible to see. Well, here, even the old ruins are used in nature now. Here is a little rock pipit. The cliffs behind me have a really diverse amount of plant life. You can see there are so many species, I really can't list them all. They are truly incredible, and the amount of birds and the wildlife that live inside there is also incredible. We've even seen birds that I can't even name. I can't identify them because I just don't see them in my area.
Diary, I think the main emotion I'm feeling right now is gratitude and appreciation. I appreciate the sunny spells and the weather, the beauty we get to experience and will experience more of. But most of all, I appreciate the hard work my mother is putting into making this possible. Road trips aren't always fun, and we'll see how hard it can get later in the week when we decide to travel up north.
Well everyone, it is wrapping up, the light is fading, and nighttime will be here shortly. It's been a wonderful day today, adventuring, seeing all the natural beauty and learning a bit about the history of these different areas of Cornwall. But I need to get some rest for more adventure tomorrow, so better zip up. Good morning everyone. It's very windy, stormy and rainy outside, but the tent has held up quite good. Had an alright sleep. There are lots of helicopters going by, and then the storm was really strong. But overall it was a good sleep. I think today will be full of rain and full of wind, but we'll try and make the most of it and have a fun adventure. Okay, we just finished up packing away the tent, and just as we were putting it in the bag, the rain came down. Look how much rain there is. It is raining hard. But it is almost time to head off and start our adventure for today. It'll be a very wet one, but hopefully we can find some fun out of it. Now packed up our camp and we're back on the road. We're off on our way to a beach called Porthleven. We're going to have a look around. It is very misty, very rainy and very wet, but we hope it will be fun. There won't be as many tourists because of the rain. Off on our way to Porthleven. We're now at Porthleven Harbour. You can see behind me, it's a really interesting one. Quite different from all the others. It's kind of wide and large and not as many boats around. And it is a really nice small fishing village. Really awesome to see. Pretty much the traditional Cornish fishing village. And Porthleven is well known and infamous for its surfing. There is a prevailing wind coming from the west here at Porthleven, and that causes swells with waves up to over 2 meters high, and it is highly regarded as one of the best surfing spots in the UK. Although I don't surf, it would be definitely really fun to come here and maybe get in the water another day when it's not as overcast and raining. Hey, seagull. We're gonna just walk about, have a look around Porthleven, maybe show you a few things. It should be good. Here is the cannon. Now this would have fired cannonballs out to the ships that were attacking the harbour. And as you can see, you can really picture how it would have been back in the 18th century when ships would be coming in. They would be shooting this cannon that's sitting here right now. You can really picture the rough sea and how dangerous it really was. It's crazy. And here we, on this wall, this is in remembrance of the sons of Porthleven, right here. And it says, remembering Fred and Edgar Giles. They were the sons of Porthleven who perished in the Titanic disaster, April 15th, 1912. Now, the Titanic's maiden voyage was from Southampton to the destination of New York, but as you know, Titanic never got to New York. And these two men, the sons of Porthleven, perished in that disaster. I think if it was a sunny day, if it wasn't a rough day like this, it would be difficult to picture the true story that is behind this harbour and this little village. There is a lot of history here, and it's incredible. Whew, it's a rough sea. Definitely don't want to go surfing in this sea. Come here to Prass Sands. It's just a beach quite close to Porthleven, but we're not going to stay here for long. You can tell it's super windy and super wet, but it's a beautiful place. It's really mysterious over there. What I find funny is they have the swimming flags up. So I guess if you did want to go swimming, you can, but it's a bit stormy. Well, today St Michael's Mount is closed off, probably because one of the tide, and two because it's quite stormy, so they don't want to bring boats out. But what is quite funny, even though St Michael's Mount is closed and the services are closed, the flags are up, so that means you could in fact swim to St Michael's Mount if you wanted to. I am drenched. Right, as we dry up with the fans full blast, we're gonna drive over to our last destination of the day. We can't really do too much as it's super stormy, but we can still have fun. So we're driving to our last destination, which is going to be Penzance. We've booked a B&B there, so that we can charge up batteries and have warm showers and warm beds for the night. But it's right on the coast, and we're going to go around Penzance, have a look about, see what we can find, and explore. And it should be good. But first we've got to find this B&B. Despite it being stormy, despite it being misty and cloudy, I've really enjoyed this. It's been a great experience so far. And I'm really glad we were able to come out on this road trip and experience more of Cornwall and take you guys along with us. We checked the weather forecast and it seems to be hopeful. Tomorrow should be windy, a few spells of rain, but also a bit of sunshine. But then the last day, so Friday, we should have a lot of sunshine to then experience the rest of Cornwall. It should be good.
One of the activities on my mum's to-do list was to visit the Penley Museum and Art Gallery. When we arrived in Penzance, that's exactly what we did. You know, I never quite understand art galleries. The art is awe-inspiring for sure, but I feel quite uncomfortable being in a room where you can only whisper, stare at a painting, and you're not allowed to film. I respected the rules though, and afterwards we went into the gardens outside the museum to embrace the small things in nature. After exploring the gardens and more of the coastline of Penzance, we entered Wharfside, an area with all the traditional Cornish shops and cafes. This is where I had my first vegan Cornish pasty.
The most iconic food.
Now, I wasn't given permission to film in the B&B, so I don't know how I'm going to include it in my film. But before the evening wrapped up and the night set in, the clouds and rain decided to pass, and my mum and I decided to make the most of it and watch the sunset over the ocean.
Right behind me here is St. Michael's Mount, and we tried to see it earlier on, but the storm was too strong and it was too foggy. But even though we're even further away, we can see it clearly now. That is St. Michael's Mount. back in the car now, leaving Penzance. On our way here, we saw quite a few seabirds just waking up, having their breakfast. We saw what I think is a wader with their long beak, pecking around in the rock pools trying to find some food, as well as seagulls and pigeons and all that. But it's been really pretty here in Penzance. Last night the clouds cleared up and we had a good sunset. And we still got some blue sky, but still cloud coverage around. I've developed a really croaky cough and voice, so we'll see how that goes with the last 2 days of the trip. But we're now off on our way to the next fishing village. We're going to be going to a few fishing villages today, not too far from Penzance. The first fishing village will be Newland, which is one of the largest fishing villages in Cornwall. So we'll be having a look at that, and we'll walk around there. And then we'll go to Mousel, which I've been to before. It's a wonderful little village, awesome, and I'm really excited to show you. And whatever happens after that is all an adventure.
Everybody, it's the 3rd of August and I'm here in Newland Harbour in Cornwall, and across the road from me here is a little shop that is a well-known secret in Cornwall, and it's Gelbert's. They sell the best ice cream you can get in Cornwall and probably in the whole of the UK. Unfortunately, because we're here early this morning, the shop is shut, and they're open till 7 o'clock at night, and they open about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And usually there's a long queue that goes all the way along the pavement for people queuing up, because once so the tourists find out that it's the best ice cream, everybody wants some. But once the tub is empty, that's it for the day. Anyway, I just thought I'd point out Gelbert's in Newland. If you're ever down in Cornwall and down this way near Penzance, make a visit. You won't be disappointed.
Behind me here is the Newland fishing port. Now, it's a very famous fishing port. It has over 50 fishing boats in this port, so it is one of the largest ports in Cornwall. All the boats are in the harbour right now as the fish have been brought in to the village, and really the spirit of the village is all revolved around fishing. Now, every single shop you go by, every lane, there is a fishing shop there, or there is a fishmonger there, and everything here revolves around fishing. This village is always working. Everyone here, all the locals, all the fishermen are always on it. They are out there fixing their boats, going fishing, getting up their shops ready, and it is incredible to see the hustle and the bustle of this little village here, as it is a very big port, one of the biggest in Cornwall. But I'm going to take you to a different harbour, a different village that is more secluded and less hustle and bustle. Now, on our way to this really nice and calm village, we decided to walk it, and we've come across this beautiful garden in memory of a disaster that happened in the 1900s. Now, right in front of me, in front of the garden, is a lifeboat launch, and that was used for the RNLI lifeboats to save ships in stormy seas. This really does look like a paradise. We are here in Mousel, and it's just a walk away from Newland, where we were previously. Now you can even see St Michael's Mount from here, Penzance. It is a beautiful day today, absolutely wonderful. But from first impressions being here in Mousehole, I haven't been for a very long time, but I can already notice how Mousehole is just so connected with the nature around it. They use the ocean, the coast to their advantage. They fish. Walking through Mousehole and to Mousehole, you could just see all the plants, all the growth, and it feels rather wild. And they obviously use the ocean to fish. They are just a really nature-focused little village, and I really like that.
We wandered into Mousehole, a first for my mum, a second for me. Mousehole is different from any other village in Cornwall. Its aura, its vibe, the buildings, the people. The place is just so unique. Tight little lanes, small alleyways, vibrantly painted houses. I said there is less hustle and bustle, and that is true, but there is always someone doing something. Not necessarily working, but just living, relaxing on the beach, painting the house, planting the seeds. It's a place for rejuvenation, a time to connect with the ocean, a time to connect with yourself.
Sense that's so different from the others. It's almost like we're in a different country. Okay.
And they were like what we would call Marines these days.
Yeah.
They had a regiment on board the ships, and they landed them just on the bottom here.
Yeah.
And they raided the village and set fire to it. And in those days, all the houses were cottages, wood frame cottages,
so
wattle and daub. They had thatched roofs. But this house was granite and slate roof.
So that's why it's survived.
Yes, it was built by the big merchant who ran the village and ran the harbour.
Yeah.
And his name was Jenkins Kegwin.
So we're in a traditional pub inn, enjoying a glass of lemonade. My previous visit to this village was much the same. You leave with a sense almost like you've just left a different country. To me, the village feels like a little Italy.
My thoughts on Mousehole are that it is just an incredible little village. It almost felt like we were in a small Italian village out somewhere outside the UK, and I really enjoyed it. I've been there once before, but that was at night time, seeing the harbour lights, which are spectacular when they're up. But really, overall, a brilliant experience.
Mousehole is a place that you could spend a whole day in and not leave. But our time to go was due, so we embarked down the sea wall, hoping we would find an exit. we never did.
If you climb up through here, I assume. I'll have a look. Nope.
Backtracking ourselves for half a kilometre, we found an exit off the coastline and onto a road. From there, we caught with our car and were back on the road to the next destination.
Way to Porthcurno Beach, but the red flag is flying, so that means that we cannot go in the ocean, we cannot go swimming, but it is a beautiful place. A lot of tourists, a lot of people here, but the sand is beautiful white. The sea, the ocean is just stunning, crazy, really rich, but crystal clear blue of the ocean, and it's really beautiful to see, really picturesque. But we're going to make our way up to, wait, what is it called? The, Minoc. We're going to make our way to the Minoc Theater, which is a theatre that has been sort of carved out of the cliff. And it should be a great spectacle to see and a good experience. But it is a shame that we can't go swimming. It's crazy, crazy waters. We have now left Porthcurno. We hiked the cliffside, trying to get to the Minoc Theater, but they're using it right now, so you cannot see it and you cannot go into it. So we are hiking, well, we're walking back down the road that you can take to get to the Minoc Theater. Just let the cars go by. And we're gonna grab a spot for lunch, because really, although it is absolutely beautiful with the huge waves and the pristine waters with no pollution, which is awesome, there's just not much adventure there, as you can't go swimming and whatnot. So we're gonna hike back, grab a spot to eat, and then carry on with our adventure.
It was nearing the end of the day. Another storm was rolling in, and the campsite was at least an hour away. Despite this, my mum and I still had one small trip that was labelled compulsory on the to-do list. We had to make it happen. Come to Gvor tin mine, which is an old tin mine that was used many years ago. We're having a tour of the facilities around here. Then, after looking about, which has so far been really interesting, we're going to be going underground in an old tin mine. Right now I'm in the locker rooms with some of the miners. You can see them. There are some of their faces. Over 100 miners did die from accidents in this very tin mine. But it is just crazy to see the history. All these. Have you clocked out? A little reminder for them. Look at all these people. All miners. The Cornish flag is a black solid colour with a white cross, and the white actually stands for the tin in our Cornish land. And tin was a very big profit to Cornwall, and it was mined quite vigorously around because it obviously gave economic development. No longer mined actively here, but really interesting to see the story. The history of mining in Cornwall is really impressive. The stories of these miners tell another level of bravery, something that I would love to learn more about. But what really caught my interest were the bright and colourful rocks and minerals the miners have found on their journeys into the darkness. Despite their complex beauty, rocks and crystals like these were not the product they were looking for, but nowadays it is valuable to scientists looking to learn more about the geology of these areas of coastline. After being inspired by some of the exhibits and old, disused areas of the mining village, my mum and I decided we'd join in on the last mineshaft tour of the day, something neither of us had experienced ourselves before. A few minutes of panning, then we were suited up, and in we went.
This is just incredible.
You need to turn sideways and go through sideways so it gets wide enough to turn forwards. And then you'll have a couple of steps up and you'll use the headroom again. And at the far end is another guide and you'll be able to stand up and reach him.
You won't have to bend anymore. You can walk us through. Still tight, but no more bending.
Hello there.
Hiya, you okay?
Yeah, very good.
Oh, it's so bright. So bright. It's just mind-blowing. Crazy.
Amazing. Crazy. Underground mine.
I wouldn't want to work in a mine.
No, that must have been really difficult work.
However, one of the guides did tell us that most of the men, if not all of them, did enjoy working there, so I think it would be fun for a few weeks.
Half a day.
Half a day.
And closed in 86, I think. That was cool.
Crazy. The mine we went through was found recently, wasn't it? Yeah. And was shut in around probably 1990. Nope, before then, 1950, he said. Mid-90s. They found it. It was covered by all the gravel and the waste of the mine, and they found it, which is crazy. And we got to go through it. As you can see, folks, we made it to our campsite. We're gonna brew some tea, cook up some food, and I think relax for the evening. Maybe if we can find a good place to watch the sunset, we can do that. But really, it's been a pretty hectic sort of past few days with a lot of visiting areas and almost making ourselves as tourists to the county that we live in. Yeah, I think we just need to relax a bit and get in the tent and have a cup of tea. Tea's brewing. There's a little wasp next to it also. But a nice wild edible to have as a snack at the campsite. That's the perfect flavour. Really good. Make a few of these. Tea.
Well, they do use lots of place names in the whole art. Lanchero, isn't that yourself?
Walking up this really stunning little walkway next to our campsite as the sun is setting behind us, and I was lucky enough to stumble upon this. Down here I saw a little bit of coal fungus. Now, if you're a long-term viewer, if you've been watching my YouTube videos that I make, you'll know that I guess I have an obsession of this little fungus here, as it is a brilliant fire starter. You can get your flint striker, crack it open, strike into the fungus, and it will create a little ember. It is brilliant to then put in some dry grass or whatever you have, blow on it a bit, and you start a fire. Now, I have no use for it today, as we are not allowed fires on the campsites here in the UK in Cornwall. So I'm just going to leave it here. Also, it is very damp. It's been down on the ground for a long time, and it's been crushed, so it is quite damp and wouldn't work very well. But it is great to see that the coal fungus is growing here. Now, if you yourself want to find some coal fungus, if you ever want to find a natural fire starter, I'm going to give you a few tips. Now, this was just found on the ground, as they do fall off the trees, mainly because birds will be climbing on the trees and knock it off. But they are usually found on dead standing trees. Now, this tree where I found the fungus, it isn't necessarily completely dead, it's thriving, but as you can see, it's had trunks, some limbs cut off, and for a long way there are no branches. That indicates that branches have been cut off, limbs have been cut off, and probably because they're rotting, they're dead. And in fact, right here we have, didn't even see this, a huge dead limb that's snapped off. So obviously these trees are quite old, and the coal fungus really prefers dead standing trees. So not necessarily standing, but some rotten wood that is not wet. and if it's dry, rotten wood, it will grow on there. And so if you're looking out for it, mainly big, tall trees, oak, ash. Ash is a very good one. And yeah, it is a really great fungus to find, and I definitely recommend you go out hunting for it. It's my favourite one. We're now walking through Tahiti Country Park. It is the trail that we went on last night just for a few minutes, just at sunset. But we're now going to spend the morning walking through this country park. It is really beautiful. We're right now walking through a few pine trees and fir trees. Got all the fir cones on there, so it looks really cool. And at the end of this trail, which is 3 miles, we'll arrive at Portreath, which is a little coastal village. And we're just going to see what we can find and have a relaxing walk.
You know, just the first strides through Tahiti Park felt very refreshing. My mum and I have surrounded ourselves with nature throughout this trip, but there was always something there that has just separated us from the true natural experience. Tahiti was a haven. The birds, squirrels, rabbits, and fish. It all gave me a truly relaxing experience, and walking step by step, my mind drifted into a meditative state, a state of natural bliss.
This plant right here is Buddleia, and the butterflies absolutely love it. They're extracting all the pollen from almost every single blossom. There's definitely over 10 butterflies here. It's crazy. What was a simple walk of 3 miles to Portreath turned into such a complicated little hike. We went through, there's a thrush. That's a thrush. We went, found ourselves in some civilized town, village place. Then we started walking through a resort full of donkeys, reindeer and chickens. And now we've just found ourselves back in a forest, with a little stream. And a beautiful little bridge down here. It's turned into an epic adventure. It's brilliant.
It was only a few more minutes until we reached Portreath.
We made it. Portreath. Finally.
And I must say, Portreath is the brightest, most vibrant village I've ever been to, both literally and metaphorically. Literally in the sense that houses are brightly coloured, the sand on the beach is white.
They're some of the best toilets, public toilets, I've seen in my whole entire life.
But metaphorically in the sense that everyone was so welcoming. The energy, the atmosphere, it was just contagious. My mum and I were in need of an energy boost, and this village provided it. We grabbed some treats to help with that, and made our way to the coast. Portreath became our place for relaxation, a place to enjoy the sun while it lasted. I absorbed as much of the energy I could, but soon enough I needed to properly wake myself up. My method? Jump in the cold, cold ocean.
The ocean looks really, really cold. Beautiful, but cold.
No matter how much I loved Portreath and the ocean, we had to leave. We left Portreath via a B road. Braving the traffic and the hot sun, we eventually reached the footpath after half an hour, and we were back on track with a path in the forest.
This is so cool. I'm in a rhododendron. Wow! I'm in a rhododendron bush. It's so cool in here.
And that's it, for now I guess. It is time to go home, but I'll be back in a few days as we road trip up north just outside of Cornwall. Well, that's the plan anyway. I love this trip with my mum. It's been a wondrous experience. But we've decided my dad will join me on the next part.
This is so much fun.
Alright, that's all I have to say for now. I'll see you then. Welcome back, and welcome to the wilderness. We have a new mission, and I have a new team. My dad is here for this adventure, joined with my buddy Betty. Today, and for the night, we will be exploring Dartmoor. Now, Dartmoor is not Cornish land, but that doesn't exclude it from being part of what I call home. Dartmoor is the only truly wild place around the southwest of the UK, and it is something else. It's got and windy. Drastic change. Barren land for miles. This is not the place you would want to find yourself alone with little supplies. A prison was once operational here, so that even if a convict did escape, they would never make it off the land alive. Menacing marshes lie patiently, primed for someone lost and wandering, ready to engulf their whole being. The moor is a mysterious place, a place where only the experienced can survive. That's why we're splitting this into 2 trips. One night on the moor is dangerous enough, so my dad and I will be coming back a week later to carry on the expedition. Despite the danger of the modern moor, the place has lots of history, once being swathed in forest. Now, only special plots of ancient woodland remain, and it is up to my dad and I to find and experience as much as we can here on our trips. Through valleys, over tors, across marshes, and against storms. Feel free to join us as we trek the magnificent, the menacing, and very much feared land of Dartmoor.
Can't get much wilder than this in the UK. Whew.
See at the end of the wall, and then it's due north.
For the start of the hike, we were joined with others, people on their day walks, some coming back from an overnighter in the deep wilderness. But as we trekked on, 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, the people once following us were nowhere to be seen.
Oh, no, the rain is coming in.
By lunchtime, everyone was gone. They had turned back before they were too deep into the moor. But we went deeper. Unlike their missions of 3 miles, we wanted to go 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles into barren land, well away from human civilization. Just us and Mother Nature.
Rain again! Rain! When it rains, it really rains. How long have we been walking for? 2 hours. We've been walking for 2 hours. Our goal is to find a waterfall. There are no paths, no signs, no footpaths. You all have to do the tracking yourself, because we are in the wild wilderness. But we've been following the water, as obviously the waterfall is on the river, so we're following it up. It doesn't seem like a very waterfall area. Wonderfully crystal clear water. It's just because of the silt in the bottom of the river, it looks that colour, but you can see right to the bottom. Hey Betty, you enjoying yourself? Time for a dead stick?
If I'm right, we're here, sitting on the bank looking at the river, so if you look behind there should be a hill there. There is one there. Oh, well, we're having a break because we've been going for 2 hours. We're having a sandwich, or I am. Betty's after it. We reckon we just passed a little brook junction with the stream. If we keep going southwest, we should hit the waterfall, we reckon. Hopefully.
With a quick boost of energy, we hiked on, following vague trails made by sheep, horses, and cows. I didn't get footage of it, but on our way up a steep incline next to the river, Betty dropped down into a hidden hole in the ground. Areas governed completely by nature have many hidden surprises, and that was one of them. I got her out of there, and luckily she wasn't hurt, so we carried upstream. Eventually, we came to the waterfall, and it was definitely a big relief.
Okay. Woo! Woo! Is this it? Oop. Betty's tried twice. We made it to the waterfalls. They're quite beautiful. Got Betty here with me. It's 3 hours of walking. I think it was worth it. It's really nice, really nice. In the middle of the wilderness. There's nothing else here. Just wow. Huh? Hey, don't go too close to the edge. Come on.
We rested at the waterfall for a few minutes, but like anything, it has to come to an end, and we still have many miles to go until we would have reached a suitable area to camp. An area not too steep, marshy, or exposed to the weather. The waterfall was our only chance to cross the river for miles, and with our heavy packs and solid walking boots, it was not an easy task.
That is the waterfall. We're crossing. Be very, very careful. You could get up that way, you just need to watch your feet. But it's a big step up.
We had problems, we had failures, but we persisted and made it to the other side.
Okay. Go, go, go!
What loomed above us was an extremely steep incline up the valley, but we knew it would be easy on from there.
Come on, Betty.
But the worst was yet to come. We had a fairly straightforward hike of about 3 miles. We were already over the valley, and we had taken a bearing to lead us over a grassy hill and down to a sheltered area of rocks. That was where we wanted to camp. Everything was going well. We stopped often to hydrate ourselves as well as the dog. By the time we came to the decline, we had found a sheltered area already, a possible camp. Further down, a perfect area, sheltered and with a water supply. It was a clear trajectory, 1 kilometer at the most, but we didn't check the map. That was our mistake. We found ourselves wandering into a marsh, 500 meters in diameter, clearly labelled on the map as a no-go area, extreme danger. But we didn't know. From the looks of it, the coast was clear, just a bit boggy and some tall grass, But as we trembled further, it was not as we thought.
I think we've gone through the worst of it. Hopefully.
We hadn't. The ground was quivering. Just a thin layer of moss floating above what could be 20 feet of sitting water.
You're safe when you go in there, and then you're back.
Each step almost penetrating the moss, and if we were to puncture it, there would be no method to free ourselves. We would have just drowned there and then, and no one would have known. One step, then the next. There was no turning back. We had already weakened the moss behind us. Our only option was to keep going.
I can feel everything moving.
I reached solid land first.
Okay, come here.
But it wasn't what I thought. The moor is very deceitful and doesn't care to play tricks. Yes, it was solid, but it was an island. A very small island in the middle of a very big marsh. Slowly, step by step, inch by inch. Must not let fear take over. Stay calm. If I sprint, I sink, and my dad comes down with me. One more step.
Oh, my heart was racing. I love hard ground. Oh my gosh. That was so dangerous. I was thinking, sheep die, horses die. It was literally a layer of moss on top of a pond. It felt like we were walking on ice. I'm not going anywhere near one of those ever. Almost there.
Now we just wanted the quick route, and the fact that we could see our destination, we knew once we reached there, we would be able to rest. The fact blinded us to the danger. We knew danger is around every corner on this moor, so we knew to always check the map and take bearings regularly. But this idea of rest changed that. A serious lesson learned that day. But we were safe, and we found a good spot to camp. Finally, we were able to rest.
Be a campsite. We've set up camp, tent over there. We are literally in the middle of nowhere. Crazy adventure to get here. The trek, we went across some bog. The scariest moment of my life. I actually thought
maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end. You could feel it quivering beneath your feet. It's almost like walking over really thin ice that was wobbling over a 20-foot lake. 20-foot deep lake. We're now by the river, collecting some water. There's camp. There is no one for miles. We're just in barren land. The river, situated by a river, some rocks for shelter. There's our camp. Betty is going crazy. She loves it. No doubt an epic adventure.
That's excellent. Leave that to the top.
For those of you that don't know what I was doing just there, this is a latrine. And that is for doing your number twos, to put it nicely. In the wilderness, with no one for miles, except sheep and horses. That's all we have for company. Spectacular. Just look at this. What a dark rain cloud coming. Woo-hoo. The best pieces of equipment you can have if you're wild camping is a small compact shovel. One of my favorite pieces of equipment I have. Really awesome. This one's got a serrated edge. Has 3 configurations. It has pickaxe, a trench tool, and a shovel, as it's in right now. It's such a brilliant tool. I love it. Gah. Soaked in every bit of thread in this sock. Nice to wake up to cold, wet shoes in the morning.
There we are.
Right out there. Full 360 degrees. No one in sight. It's incredible. Not even like any sign of humans. Bare wilderness. No bears though. No bears. Absolutely beautiful. And then look. Oh my gosh!
That's going to come down here.
Right to our little tent. Alright, we've got to batten down the hatches. I think, despite it being early, we're going to get in the tent and go to sleep. And hopefully brave the storm. It's huge. Crazy. Ooh. It's a bit stormy, but good morning. This is what we woke up to. No one for miles. It's just wet, gloomy, moody. I tell you now, the rain we had last night was like no other. Insane. Back at the river now, gonna wash up this pot. I had some cereal in it for breakfast.
But my dad told me a little tip. When you're cleaning out pots, you can use, I always used to use my fingers to clean out the pots, but you can actually use moss, and use the moss as a scrub, and scrub out all the dirty stuff. So I'm just going to get some moss and clean out this pot. So this moss can act as my scrubber, scrub out the pot. It's quite clever. There we go. So the plan is to hike east and then connect to a trail to then follow us back to the car. It should take us all day, or most of the day. And I've got to put on wet and cold shoes. We can do it, Betty. Leave no trace.
Looks like we're heading out for that little blip there.
Alrighty.
I think we packed this slightly better with the view not to. Brilliant jacket.
Taking the high ground route because we're definitely not going back into the marshland. No way. Too scary.
The hike back was long, but far less dangerous. Our idea was to create a circle to get back to where we started. It would take us almost all day, but the last few miles would be on a cut-out trail used by day walkers. We had our problems, as with every trek.
There's some stuff up there also. After a difficult hike, an inclined hike, we're here at some ruins, so we're taking a stop. Let's check the map.
We had to cross another dangerous marsh, this time just a couple of strides wide, acting as a moat of a tor.
Okay. Oh, first problem solved of the day. It's dangerous out here. Almost there. Weather system's coming in.
Betty, low on energy, decided she couldn't jump over a bog, so walked through it, stuck with mud up to her shoulders and hips. But I had my eye on her.
Beth! You can't run through mud! So these are the stone circles. They would have been used for religious meetings. They're in the middle of the moor. In the middle of nowhere, miles from anywhere. I really don't understand how people would have gotten here. But these are on the main track that's been, you can see it's a wide, flat area. And we've been off-road, off-track for a long time. And we've got back on track with these stones as our way to get a bearing back here.
And we had very many crossings with alpha male bulls.
Good bull. Good bull. Good bull. Good bull.
He was huge.
He's a big boy.
Just the normal things to find out in the moor. But we made it back. A lot of compass and map work, a lot of water stops, and a lot of singing. And I must say, the scenery was the best thing. Not the landscape as such, but the idea that there was no human being within miles of you. That was just staggering. But we'll be back for next week. We're back, trekking a different route through greater valleys and vibrant flora, following the raging River Tavy. Trekking less distance, we came here to enjoy the flourishing wildlife, the ancient trees, and the sunny weather. Welcome back to the wilderness.
It's a terrific view from here.
The hike began following a calm-flowing leat, created to transport water from the River Tavy to nearby towns and farmland.
We've gone due east, hit the leat, and then we go south east, not very far, and then it should go north.
Okay. Behind me, right back there, is the huge Gur Tor looming over us with all its might. The leats that we have been using as our sort of navigation on this little hike, in this certain area of the leat, it is over 6 feet deep. We got across here.
The River Tavy, popular for recreational sports such as kayaking and swimming, is one of the larger tributaries feeding the River Tamar, the division between Cornwall and Devon. I've seen the Tamar multiple times in the past, so it was interesting to hike next to what feeds the big division, starting all the way in the wild.
So we have some local knowledge that if we cross the river here, which we have done, then we will be on the less sort of the less steeper side of the valley, whereas all the other people that are on the other side, they're going to find trouble in theory, because it's going to be full of marsh and it's going to be super steep and you cannot cross that area. So we've crossed early so that we don't have to hit that area, and we should be a bit easier. We've got lots of sheep.
The landscape on this trip was like no other.
Hello.
Having huge tors loom above you, a vast expanse of greenery. It was all so luxurious. And the sunshine definitely helped to make it a precious sight.
The views, the vistas, they are so utterly outstanding. Look at that. And ahead. Beautiful. This is kind of what we're talking about. You can see on the opposite side to us, incredibly steep, rocky, and there's no way you can cross that raging river. But on this side, it is a flat, open area, not difficult to hike along at all, and you don't have to cross a raging river.
We meandered through a huge valley carved out by the water.
So this is the huge gorge. Pretty crazy.
Our destination in mind was a place called Sandy Ford, what seemed to be, from looking on the map, the perfect spot to set up camp and have cover from the weather, roughly 8 kilometers further.
Behind me is a stream that's going north, so if we head east along by the other river and then gradually climb back down to the river, we should end up at Sandy Ford where we're going to camp.
As I said, this trip was more of a relaxing one. Less miles, prospects to see more of the wildlife the moor has to offer, but most of all, to spend more time with my father. And camp was a great way to do that. These trips have really shown me the significance of having another member on your adventures. I don't know what these would have been like without my dad. His guidance, his resilience, his laughter. You become a team. You look out for each other. You learn together. And I can think of no better place to spend time with my dad.
So I'm down by the river, just chucking stones at this floating bit of fluff, foam, that's been, accumulated down the river. Pretty much destroyed it now. It's my target. It's quite fun. The rocks here are really, really interesting. Sort of the sand, the sediment in the river. This is known as Sandy Ford, this area that we're in. This is the northerly running river that I'm right on right now. But yeah, the sediment here, the rocks here are really interesting. A lot of it is quartz, which is a good sign for gold actually. If there's quartz around in the river, then there could be gold down on the bedrock. So it would be awesome to just go digging right down to the bedrock and see if we can find some golden nuggets, but it's a bit too cold for that. A bit too cold. Here it is. Take out the big rocks. Now I find this stuff really interesting. But you can see all the quartz in there in my hand. There's quite a bit of it. Like this bit here is quartz. Pretty much all of this is quartz. So if I dug down to bedrock, which really isn't too far, I'm touching it now actually, that might be a rock. Oh no, that's a rock. But if I dug down to bedrock, I might find some gold. When on shortwave, you can literally hear aliens. Listen to this. That's an alien spaceship. Morning, everyone. It's a chilly morning. It's quite cold. Quite wet as well, but it was an alright sleep, not too bad. Sun has risen up over Furtor, and I think it's time for breakfast. Dartmoor is a devious place, a two-faced character. On one side of the mountain is a luxuriously green, woodland-swathed deep valley, with huge granite tors, beautiful rivers, and wild horses. On the other, a bleak, boggy, and formidable expanse of impassable wilderness, with the moor ready to play tricks at any corner. We've now seen both sides of the story. How divergent the land is, how unexpected it can be. Hey. We're back at the Leet. We're almost there, everyone. Whew. A place with so much hidden beneath the surface. So much variation that you can't ever truly know its power until you've adventured it.
time to say goodbye to my diary for now. It's been wonderful bringing you along. My adventures will continue, that's for sure. But my next entry, that will have to wait. I'll see you soon, diary. I hope you enjoyed the journey. Be curious, be adventurous. Adios.